Live Aid, one of the biggest events in music and television history, estimated to have been watched live by around 40% of the Earth's population. With acts ranging from the well-established to the freshly minted, and Bob Geldof swearily encouraging phone-in donations, Live Aid ended up raising around £150 million for famine relief in Ethiopia. Among its 1.5 billion viewers were a young Neil and a very young Stuart, and today the pair of us are revisiting Live Aid to pick our possibly overlapping top 10 performances. Welcome to Top Venn Live Aid. Oh, and bonus quiz thing you can do during this is one of the Live Aid picks we actually picked is something that wasn't actually performed at Live Aid in a kind of weird false memory Mandela effect sort of thing. So look out for that, and if you can spot that, you win some sort of prize. Okie doke, Neil, your first pick.
Right, it's Nick Kershaw with Wide Boy. Aside from the Animal Quackers at Margate Bandstand in the late 1970s, by 1985 I'd never been to a live music contest before, nor watched one on television. I had heard Wide Boy on the radio, however, so I was slightly puzzled when Nick started to sing. Dad, this doesn't sound like it does on the radio. I think it's pretty good for live. It was then that the distinction between recorded and live music dawned on me. An important life lesson that we all have to learn at some point.
Nice. Okay, yep. My first pick, and again, like yours, not in any particular order necessarily, but in number 10 would be Holiday, my Madonna. I was sort of more familiar with Madonna from a kind of a late 90s rare light ambient ballady kind of electronic sort of era. So I kind of forgot almost that she was kind of an upbeat pop artist by origins. So in some ways that was quite a surprise to me. And it was kind of a surprise in general that kind of Live Aid was actually very upbeat in general, given that the obviously the fundraising thing they were actually the whole event was based around was obviously not kind of that kind of ambience. So yeah, and it was an interesting thing to see her kind of doing a kind of classic 80s pop thing.
Okay, so my next choice is The Cars doing Drive. Live had been going for a few hours, very successfully it seemed. However, in what must have been a pre-planned moment to remind everyone what this was really all about, there was a break in the live music and, on a big screen at Wembley and to millions watched on TV at home, the studio recording of Drive was played over a film of a little boy, his stomach swollen with hunger, trying again and again to get up on fragile stick-like limbs. I was perhaps too young, dumb and insensitive to fully absorb the emotional resonance of the moment, yet clearly it lodged in my memory, waiting for a time when I better grasp it, like now. I do recall my little sister being in tears, but that was because my brother pulled her pigtails.
Well, my next pick is Paranoid by Black Sabbath, mainly just because it's such a wacky sort of oddball booking for them to make it Live Aid anyway. But I mean, just having those kind of weird heavy metal power chords just coming out of left field, and obviously just as more than anything, just a tribute to the late great Ozzy Osbourne as well. Apparently, Paranoid was a sort of kind of a filler track that wasn't even necessarily supposed to be in that album at all to start with. So it's interesting that that's kind of almost become their most iconic signature tune in retrospect.
Right, so my third choice is Queen with Radio Gaga. This is one of the most iconic moments from Live Aid. Many people have heard about it, even if they were only two at the time.
Yep, indeed, yeah.
And therefore an obvious choice, but that doesn't distract from its greatness. Freddie Mercury had the whole of Wembley clapping above their heads. I had never, at the age of 13, seen anything like it. It was the first time I realised the power of a performer to essentially conduct their audience. Though I've since learnt that very few can do it as well. Freddie was one of them. The house was awestruck into silence for a few moments. Then my father's wife piped up, "Is Freddie Mercury gay?"
My next pick is Singing in the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. Again, to a certain extent, it's just a shout out to his kind of transcontinental kind of shenanigans of actually getting on the Concorde, banging in between. I guess, I should clarify which of the two performances, because I think he actually did Something in the Air Tonight once, both at Wembley and Philadelphia. So I'd probably say the Philadelphia performance just for the kind of endurance test, sweaty energy that he managed to bring to that second rendition of the song. And an interesting thing that I kind of noted in that performance and throughout is just like how many youngsters there are in the crowd, which doesn't necessarily seem a weird thing for a music performance. But of course, even at that time, a lot of Phil Collins and a lot of the other performers were actually getting on a bit, and were kind of not necessarily in what you would consider to be their kind of peak in retrospect, but seemingly like the youthful crowd was still very much kind of into it and into the whole experience.
Okay, so my fourth choice is Dire Straits with Money for Nothing. This song was a huge hit in the summer of 1985. And I'd already heard it a few times on the radio in parents' cars and in shops. But it wasn't until seeing it perform at Live Aid that I knew it was Sting singing the I Want My MTV bit. Dad, isn't that man in the police? No, singing is his only job. In preparation for this, that is what we're doing right now, I discovered that young Stuart Tyler here didn't know until I told him
that's right.
that it was Sting. So there you go, important knowledge acquired 40 years ago, at last being passed on.
Yeah, indeed. Yep, yeah, bit of lore passed on there. And in a weird coincidence, my next pick is also Dire Straits. But Sultans of Swing rather than Money for... I did consider Money for Nothing as well, but I just, it was the super extended version, and I'm a sucker just for a super extended version of live performance. I mean, it's just quantity over quality to a certain extent, but I just appreciate it when they really go for it.
It's a solid choice.
And I think Sultans of Swing has that kind of slightly more sort of dreamy quality, and for me, Dire Straits has a kind of embedded nostalgia in the sense that even at the age of sort of my teens, I was already appreciating that Dire Straits was something old that I sort of vaguely remembered from knocking about in childhood. So now that it's got a new extra layer of nostalgia, now looking back on nostalgia about nostalgia in a kind of weird sort of FOMO meta nostalgia sort of way. So yeah, it has that kind of weird vibe to it.
Okay, my fifth choice, Status Quo, Rockin' All Over the World. I've never been a Status Quo fan, finding the ordinary blokiness of their oeuvre vaguely depressing. Music for people who like to know what they're getting, who order egg and chips when on holiday abroad. My dad sang along heartily, slapping his armchair in time to the music. However, there's no denying that them opening up that day with this song, it just worked. The one and only time, the one and only context in which I've ever been able to appreciate the Quo.
Nice. So my next pick is TVC15 by David Bowie. Generally, it's a bit of an outlier in my kind of Bowie knowledge and appreciation. This kind of boogie-woogie number, and I feel like generally it's always been something I thought of more woogie than boogie, but I think the performance at Live Aid really leaned into the boogie, and there was actually a real sort of upbeat energy to it. And also the other kind of weird thing I noticed about it is just like the lyrics are just like so insane. But the whole thing is seemingly about how like his girlfriend's like crawled into the TV and she's lost in there and he's trying to get her out of it or something. It's kind of a trippy number, which I'd never really thought about it before, so it gave me an extra appreciation listening to it again in a Live Aid context.
Okay, so my sixth choice is Madonna doing Like a Virgin. I'd seen the video for this a few times. Madonna in a crop top on a gondola in Venice, ducking under bridges as she lip-synced. I'd never seen such an item of clothing before. I could see her belly button. You see, in 1985 I just reached the age where I saw Madonna in a different light to that of 1984. So I was looking forward to her performance at the concurrently running American Live Aid. Alas, now I just remember the disappointment at her not taking her jacket off. Dad, I can't see her belly button in the video. Maybe she's pregnant.
My next pick is Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen, so we've already had one Queen shout out already. Appreciate the sort of Elvis-esque kind of homage of the style of this song. It's kind of, again, a sort of a bit of a sort of meta embedded nostalgia because it was the nostalgia of Queen, but also a throwback to that kind of earlier style. And it's just generally just a very playful, entertaining number. Apparently, Freddie Mercury kind of knocked this out in about 10 minutes when he originally composed this one. So yeah, it's a good, solid tune.
So my seventh choice is Sade doing Your Love Is King. She is inextricably but reductively linked with 80s yuppies playing her music on those newfangled CDs. But for me, Sade's was another performance tinged with a new perspective early adolescence brings. What a cool, graceful, otherworldly being she seemed to me. I must have been visibly agog, for I remember my dad saying, "Close your mouth and put your eyes back in your sockets," before chuckling knowingly.
My next pick is another Queen number. I'm going to go for Bohemian Rhapsody. Just the ballad segment that they actually performed at Live Aid. Again, this is one that has a real sort of embedded nostalgia value. I remember like lots of sort of bus and coach trips at school where you just have to fill the space by obviously doing sing out the whole of Bohemian Rhapsody. Obviously more compacted in this, but the whole Queen set. I mean, you could really pick any of them because they're all they just kind of had the baton on from one performance to the other. Well, it almost was like no break in it, as if they were one continuous kind of tune. But that's just one that's kind of stood out for me.
8th choice already, and it's the Boomtown Rats doing I Don't Like Mondays. Up there with Freddie in Live Aid's iconic moments. Geldof sings a line, and the message today is how to die. Then he raises a fist skywards as the music just stops for about 10 seconds. Dad, the telly's frozen. No, he's making a point. What point? He didn't answer, but I got it eventually. That is, now.
And another weird dovetailing. I've also chosen the Boomtown Rats for my next pick, and this one's a bit of a cheat because actually in the original sort of Live Aid performance it wasn't fully played out. It was Rat Trap, which is just has a really sort of high energy, and I thought was a really solid Bob Geldof performance. But actually, when he was performing at the time, I believe he got so overexcited he actually yanked the microphone out, so half the performance is actually missing. But if you go on YouTube, you can find a performance where they've actually obviously digitally sampled later performances, and they've actually overlaid it and shown it from certain angles where you can't see his mouth not moving in sync to the tune. So it's a bit of a cheat, but yeah. I still think that's if I can, I'm going to try and sneak that under the radar and make that my next pick.
Right, so my 9th choice is Mick Jagger doing the Rolling Stones song Miss You. Dad, I asked, where are the rest of the Rolling Stones? They've split up. They don't get on anymore. I wonder how many people know the Stones didn't play Live Aid. You would just assume they had, wouldn't you? Jagger looked very old to me. As old as my dad. Far too old to be prancing around on stage like that. No wonder he retired shortly after. Or should have.
So my next pick is Let It Be by Paul McCartney. So I thought this was towards the very end of the Live Aid performance, a perfect way to sort of wind down with that kind of sort of more ballady sort of number. A little bit like Rat Trap. It's a slight cheat. I think the version you'd see on kind of home media releases and on YouTube, again, has a little bit of an overdub because Paul McCartney's microphone stopped working at one point during the performance.
I remember.
And apparently that was part of the reason why then David Bowie and Alison Moyet and Robert Daltrey all kind of run out onto the stage as well to essentially help him out. But I thought that in itself was kind of sort of emblematic of the kind of slightly shambolic energy of Live Aid and just having to improvise and just throw stuff together. And they didn't really care because it was all for a good cause and it was a little bit sort of frayed around the edges. So that kind of, to me, sort of symbolised Live Aid in quite a nice sort of way.
So my final pick, Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas? It was getting late, all the acts were on stage at Wembley for the finale. I'd never seen such a mustering of famous, some now iconic faces. Then I realised something. Dad, you haven't rung up and given any money. I'll do it when you go to bed, he lied in response. I don't remember when I went to bed that night, nor if I slept, but I did realise I'd never forget the day I spent watching Live Aid on the telly at my dad's. And this is the proof, 40 years later.
I mean, I was half tempted to have Band-Aid, Did They Know It's Christmas in there as well, but I've got a weird bugbear about like Christmas like being celebrated or acknowledged outside Christmas time. Did it feel weird at the time that they would sing a Christmas song? Or did you not really care, do you think?
Well, I think back then, Christmas didn't start till December. So,
sure, yeah.
Yes, but somehow it was okay just for that song.
It kind of felt right for the occasion, yeah. That's fair enough. My final pick is another David Bowie, Heroes. Which is a tune that I've kind of, over the years, it's felt a little bit sort of overplayed and sometimes a little bit cliche when it's used in kind of films and adverts and TV, that sort of thing. But I think here it just like fitted thematically, obviously, so perfectly to say, everyone was being a hero because they were all getting together and fundraising and donating money and that sort of thing. And again, that whole kind of Bowie set was just really sort of high energy and just kind of felt like how do you follow Queen at Live Aid? But he managed to pull it off to a certain degree, which is very kind of commendable. So that would be my final pick in the Live Aid lineup. So my original concept with Top Venn was going to be this Venn diagram was going to show where our overlaps was. We didn't actually have any overlaps on individual tunes, but this is the inaugural episode, so it's my channel. I can do whatever I want. So the overlap was we both said Queen was good. So
yes, he got two and I got one, and I think we need to be honest and not pretend that one of us, I can now say, yes, I actually Crazy Little Thing Called Love was absolutely fantastic, the best moment, but in the spirit of honesty, that's as close as Venn we get.
That's as Venny as we get.
Venny as we get.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I said, to me, to a certain extent, all the Queen performances were almost like one continuous song. The way he did it was, with the little bits of linking crowd work in between. It was almost like, yes, they were individual tunes, but it was actually almost like a whole individual.
I think it shows how great it was, actually. I know it was ranked about 20 years ago as the best live performance ever. Yeah, they only had 21 minutes on stage, but there we are.